This is Jordan Lally with the Ed Lally Foundation and the acoustic rock band Big Infinite, inviting you to a very special live music event at the Havre de Grace Opera House on May 23rd. We will be hosting not only a concert, but an experience of togetherness and connection for everyone in attendance. And all proceeds from this event go to benefit the Ed Lally Foundation's mental health and suicide prevention outreach. We would love for you to join us. For more details or to purchase tickets, visit edlallyfoundation.org or head over to the Havre de Grace Opera House website.
Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch or fast pitch?
I never play softball.
It's probably the least sexy part of organizing. That's okay. No. The truth is.
Today I'm honored to welcome Dale Walsh to Conversations with Rich Bennett. Dale is a recovery coach specializing in schizophrenia and serious mental illness. Diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1975, he has since achieved full recovery and now dedicates his life to helping families navigate the challenges of mental illness. With his unique inside-out perspective, Dale has created the Live Love coaching method, giving families the tools to communicate effectively and reclaim their own sense of self while supporting their loved ones. And we're going to take a little turn here because Dale and I were talking before we started recording, and he told me something which blew me away. He's got 7 books that are unpublished. So we're going to talk about that. And of course, we're going to talk about the Live Love coaching method as well. So how you doing, Dale?
Very well, Rich. How are you? Good to be here. Thanks very much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
My pleasure. So this blew me away, and I want to get into this right away. The books. So you say you got 7 manuscripts, right?
Correct.
None of them published yet. When did you write the first one?
Well, I actually, what happened was, I wrote all my books after I got taken away from Dartmouth College. I was in a psychiatric program in New Jersey. And I wrote 6 books, including Slick. My first book was my old girlfriend called it a series of autobiographical sketches, which is called Slick Dynamo's Circus, or The Thinking God's Guide to Frisbee. And then, and that's basically my gospel. It's like where I declare that I'm God and basically try to back it up and everything. And then, and then what I call my bestseller for the 20th century is a apocalyptic romance called Velvet Velour's Follies, Book 2, or The Flight of the Dialina, which is my spaceship. And so that's that takes place. These were all written from between 1976 and 1985 when I graduated from Fairleigh Dickinson. And then when I graduated, I turned my focus to poetry. And since 1985, I've accumulated an archive of more than 5,000 poems, including 5 collections on Amazon. And I also about a year and a half ago, I was in a course called, it was about Amazon short books, right. And which is like some sort of form that Amazon has. And so I wrote a book about my great psychotic break at Dartmouth College in 1975, which is called Escape from the Ivy League, or How Becoming God Changed My Life.
Okay, and you don't have any of these published?
Just my 5 collections of poetry.
But not the novels that you wrote?
No.
Okay, so...
And I'm planning to get Escape from the Ivy League on Amazon soon.
Okay, so with the... You mentioned earlier you didn't know how to go about getting them published?
Well, basically, yeah. I use KDP for my poetry books.
Right.
But, I like to really sort of like get a publisher and sort of go more mainstream for my novels. But, I guess part of it is sort of like lack of self-worth or imposter syndrome. But it's also, I just feel, I've circulated some of my books and people say these don't fit into any categories. So, I think it's it just shows how innovative they are. And, a lot, I think one of my reluctancies is just this idea that, nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
All right, let me ask you this. And do you like reading what you wrote?
I do. I think Velvet Velour's Follies Book 2, or The Flight of Dialina, my bestseller from the 20th century, is like a masterpiece.
I want to do everything possible to help you get these published. And if you want, this is totally up. Do you have them electronically, digital, or are they all handwritten?
Just my Escape from the Ivy League and Velvet Velour's Follies Book 2. That's another thing, is I don't have any except one manuscript. I have them published on paper, but not electronically, not on my computer. So I have to transcribe those.
Which shouldn't be too hard to transcribe nowadays. Back in the day, it would have been real hard.
Right.
But if you want, and this is totally up to you, what I would do is something that a lot of authors do now is what's called an advanced reader copy. So you could send a copy of your manuscript to people that you know or trust and get their input. And they can write like a testimony, almost like a book review for it. So this way, before it's published, you already have the reviews for it, which you can also put in the book. That helps sell the books a lot. I think anybody that says there's nobody that'll read that, I say, I mean, it's just like with podcasting. People want to get into podcasting and then don't because they say nobody's going to listen to it.
Right.
They will. Even if it's one listener, even if it's 5, even if it doesn't matter. Here's the thing now, if you don't mind me asking, let's talk about, what's the first book called? The first
Slick Dynamo Circus, or The Thinking God's Guide to Frisbee.
Okay, what's that about?
Well, as I said, it's a series of autobiographical sketches, but it's basically the chronicle of my first year and a half as a diagnosed psychotic.
I would read that in a heartbeat. I know of other people that would read it because to me, I think that would help people. Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's not that way, but I would also think it would help others to understand people that have that type of, I guess it would be a mental illness.
I agree. I just, I make declarations in it like, "Hi, I'm God. Why not?" I mean, that's the start of one page and everything. And it's sort of like, and they're like sort of like semantic things that I do, semantic games I play and everything. Like every Y-O-U, I say it's Hugh, H-U-G-H, which is my best friend. So, what do you feel? And then another thing that I'm big on is substituting D-W, which is my initials, for D-O.
For D-O?
Yeah, like I do, what.
Oh. I like that. How the hell can I do that with my name, though? I think in all honesty, I think you're sitting on a gold mine there.
Well, that's also what we were talking about how I'm sort of pivoting out of the mental health space. And, I it's been 50 years now in August since I was taken away from Dartmouth and everything. And basically my focus has been explaining my recovery and dealing with my mental illness. But I decided on my 10th birthday that I wanted to be a writer. And I've sort of like got distracted away from that. I mean, I still write poetry every day. I'm still like a very prolific poet, but I've just in the last like 2 or 3 days, I've been bitten by the bug of it's time for a new book because just what's happening in the world is very relevant to what I write. Like Velvet Velour's Follies Book 2. It ends with the Ruskies attacking the United States with thermoneutronic weapons to create the United States of Museum. So I don't know if you know what neutronic weapons are.
No, but I know you're going to explain it.
Well, neutronic weapons are weapons that kill the people but leave the buildings. So, it was like a concept that was developed during Jimmy Carter's presidency. But basically, it's like, the joke is, have you ever heard about a neutron martini?
No.
Gets you bombed, but leaves you standing.
I think there was a wine cooler similar to that a long time ago called Cisco. Wow. So, all right. I want to talk about the poetry as well, because you said you've written over 5,000?
Correct.
Wow. But those are published on Amazon.
No, only 5 books. Only 5 books of those. So I published probably about 500 out of 5,000.
Wow. But those are available on Amazon.
The books are, yes, under D.E. Walsh.
One of them's not Fossil Fuel for the Brain.
That's it. Fossil Fuel for the Brain, and Entering the New Era of Dew, For Those Who Hate Verse, and Angels, Seraphim on Cusp of Spring, and then there's a last, I think it's Dew Sonnets of Forever Love.
All right, I'm looking, those of you listening, if you go on to Amazon and you look under Mr. D.E. Walsh in books, you're going to find them here. And just to give you an idea, I don't know if you know this or not, Dale, but like Fossil Fuel for the Brain is ranked pretty good for epic poetry in books.
Oh, that's good to know. I never check.
What got you into poetry?
Well, it was just like I basically after 6 novels, it was like I graduated from college, and I just felt that I could express myself more succinctly and more universally through poetry because it was a lot easier because a novel took like 6 to 9 months at least to write, whereas a poetry, I can whip off a poem in 30 minutes at the most. So I've developed probably like 7 different forms of poetry, so basically what I do is how I write every day is I basically just get an idea for like 1 or 2 lines, and then I use those and use the form, which are very structured, to just like improvise and write the poem.
Wow. And here you are, you still got a lot more books to release on your poetry because you've only done 500. You got 5,000.
Correct. And I've been writing at least a poem a day since 1/1/23 because 2022 I only did like a total of 50 poems the whole year, which to me was like a terrible year of production. So I decided for my New Year's motivation and resolution, I was going to write a poem a day, and I haven't stopped since 1/1/23. So in the last
Wow.
2 years, I've basically produced 1,000 poems.
Let me ask you this, because a lot of people, they write and it's good therapy for them. With you, was it writing the novels or the poems that are better therapy for you?
Well, one thing you have to understand, Rich, is that they were two separate periods of my life.
Okay.
So the novels were therapeutic when I was going through the intensity of first getting diagnosed and then the program and everything. Basically the novels were ways to sort of like distance myself from the immediacy of the intensity of my therapy, because I had very intense therapy. I was in a private residential psychiatric program for 5 years. I had like therapy for 3 times a week and group therapy for an hour and a half twice a week. And it was all under the direction of one doctor. And I got hospitalized 9 times when I was in the program.
Wow.
And so basically the books were basically sort of like a way to express my imagination and let my imagination be free in a way that was being suppressed in therapy.
So with the poetry, were you reading poetry before you even started writing it?
Well, I studied poetry in college, but I never got into reading poetry. People
Really?
say, yeah, I'm everything I've done is like sort of like self-produced.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, now crazy question, because anytime I think of poets, I think of the coffee houses.
Right.
And them reading their poems. Have you considered that at all or done it?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because there was a big coffee house, audience in the early 2000s in New Jersey. But since then, the whole industry has been shut down, and I don't have a car, and but open mics now are for music and, stuff like that. And poetry is basically forgotten. So, I just produce, and, sometimes I read stuff over the phone, or, I share with my counselor every week, my poetry,
Right.
and, and he thinks it's extremely good. But, I just, actually, I did a book that I plan on publishing soon on Amazon. I wanted to publish it before Christmas, but I have the manuscript, and anything you want to read of mine, I'd be happy to send along.
Oh, absolutely, and I'll help you get it published. I talk to publishers, I talk to authors all the time, and it's the publishing world has changed a lot, because back in the day, you had to find an actual publisher. Now you got self-publishing. Some people just do it themselves and do it through the KDP program on Amazon. I believe there's some other ones out there. But what I found from talking to these other authors is the advanced reader copy helps a lot, especially if you're going to be self-published. The advanced reader copy helps a lot. And doing what you're doing now, getting on podcast, talking about your book, that's free advertising. No, I would be I would be honored to, because I think, like I said, you're sitting on a gold mine there, and I know they would help other people.
This is the pivot that I'm doing these days, but basically all the podcasts I've been on have been sort of talking about schizophrenia and my and my program and everything. But I don't know if you know Podmatch. That's how we met.
Yes.
But Podmatch has been very helpful, and now I'm like applying to writer shows instead of just mental health shows.
The other thing you can do, Dale, is you're in what, New York or New Jersey?
New Jersey, Hackensack, New Jersey.
Okay. Look for some writers groups to join. And what they do, everybody gets together. A lot of them, they'll critique each other's books. they're talking about publishing. Some of these writers groups have publishers in them, and it's just like a support group on writing.
Right.
But I would look into seeing if there's any up there, or and they don't even need to be up there. They could be virtual.
Right.
And do that, and that will help you out a lot too.
Right.
Oh, I want to see these books published.
Well, I'm I say I never got married or had children, but my books are my children.
There you go. So with the poetry, and if you don't want to, this is totally up to you. What is one of the favorite ones that you've written?
Well, actually, that we can transition into what I came on to talk about, because I have an introductory poem that I use to tell my story and basically tell what happened in Dartmouth. So it goes,
Perfect.
Dale reviewing what actually happened. Hi, I'm God was a joke I made after Killer Dartmouth toke of some primo Ivy League smoke, which apparently caused me to choke, because in mental hospital I awoke with roommate Gabriel, the main bloke who did my delusions angelically stroke. Even while the doctor claimed my brain broke, the moment divine gag I spoke, testifying I was only big quack, which clinicians diagnosed a psychotic attack, preventing me from getting sanity back until I came to Teaneck Hackensack to pursue resident therapy program track to deal with my evident lack of reason among psychiatric patient pack who never gave me any slack. Under interrogation, the story didn't crack.
Wow. That's amazing. How long did that take you to write?
30 minutes. It's
Come on.
Yeah, well, like I say, I have these forms, and this form is what I call a Dale. And what it is, it's 6 words a line and 2 sets of 9 rhymes apiece.
That is amazing. All right, now
and actually, you mentioned fossil fuel for the brain. Fossil fuel for the brain is my book of that has a lot of Dales. It's split into 5 sections. It's 2 sets of Dales, 2 sets of regular poetry, and then a middle section of 21st century psalms.
Say what?
Yeah, 21st century psalms.
Wow. All right, so I think what you need to do now, especially after you just recited that poem, maybe do a record. You can rap it.
Well, that's what everybody says. He says that this is pure rap, Dale. So
it's great though. It's good. It's very good, and I still think that poetry is an art that a lot of people are missing. And it just, to me, it feels, I still read poetry. I used to write songs, which is also a form of poetry. But I think people are missing it. And if to me, when you read it, it makes you feel so good, depending on the type of poetry you're reading.
I actually have another introductory poem if you're interested. It's another Dale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it's called My History in Nutshell. Well advanced at becoming Bob Frost, at Dartmouth I my mind lost and was from Ivy League tossed. Put into therapy considerable cost to have my brain teeth flossed by the doctor whom he bossed. Every night after I get sauced, doing my duty at my post in hospital where I was host. And met the beautiful female Jill, for whom over dale, over hill I trekked when I was ill, until I found the perfect pill to keep my psychotic demons still, which make romantic chances virtually nil. Even while perfecting my poetic skill, I hope will pay the bill for sodas on which I fill.
Wow. And when did you write these two?
These are 2014. No, 2004, I think, actually.
Wow. So how hard were they to write?
Well, you just follow the rhyme, and, you have an idea in mind, and you just follow the rhyme. So,
you just rhymed there.
I mean, So that's how you get to have my brain teeth flossed, you know?
I love it. I love it. Now, with your live love method, because you do coaching.
Right.
So do you recite any of your poems with your clients there?
Usually not. Actually, live love was something that basically God downloaded to me. It's a whole new therapeutic method, and it's an anagram, which is an 8-step program for guiding people through the process that I take them through, and it stands for learn, integrate, validate, explore, and then love is listen, observe, value, and express. So those are like the 8, sections that we go through. And, for instance, learn, I mentor the family caregivers of those with schizophrenia. So the learn session is sort of like, tell me about your loved one, tell me what you think about your caregiving, stuff like that. And then integrate is sort of like, well, where we go from here, I mean, how do you think you can like improve your caregiving? And then it's a whole process of like learning how to communicate better with loved ones while also helping people to understand the illness and, their loved one better.
So you're coaching the loved ones of people that have schizophrenia.
I'm basically the family caregivers of those with schizophrenia.
What's one of the biggest challenges you have when it comes to that?
Finding people.
Really?
Yeah, because that really is my biggest problem, because I know I can help people and everything, but there's such a stigma around schizophrenia and mental illness that people, I think, are very reluctant to actually come to me and say, this is what I'm going through. And, and the other thing is I don't have, like 20 initials after my name. But I have the lived experience, and I've gone through 50 years of schizophrenia. And so I know not only the illness and, and I was hospitalized 15 times, ending in 2005. So basically I've experienced everything that schizophrenia is. But ultimately it's just like, people, I think, are very reluctant to admit that they have this problem just because there's such a stigma, not only about serious mental illness, but especially about schizophrenia.
Well, with schizophrenia, is it possible that somebody has it and don't even know?
Virtually not.
No? Okay.
They might not know it. There's something called anosognosia, ANOSOGNOSAI. And that's a term taken from neurology from stroke victims who can't understand there's something wrong with their brains. So it's estimated that 50 to 60% of people with serious mental illness have anosognosia. So the analogy I use is, if you hold a book up to a blind person and ask him to read it, he's not going to be able to do it. And it's sort of like, it's the same type of blindness that a person with serious mental illness has towards his illness. And for 10 years, for the first 10 years of my therapy and my recovery journey, I was in anosognosia. I didn't see anything wrong with saying I was God. And, basically I was always trying to prove it. And, so what happened was in 1984, I had this vision of the whole world, the entire Earth being incinerated in a thermonuclear holocaust. And so I called that the death of Dale. And basically my whole personality system as Dale was absolutely annihilated. And it took me 9 months before I became, I reintegrated into Dewey, who's my alter ego. But the death of Dale was the death of my delusion, and it was also the death of my anosognosia, because I realized how sick I'd been for the last 10 years, even though I'd been having this intensive therapy experience. But it made me realize how sick I'd been. And I really consider that the beginning of my real recovery. And that was 40 years ago.
So with recovery, because you mentioned there was therapy involved, is it also medication? And is that something that lasts?
Yeah, I've been on medication for 48 years. And I attribute my success very much to the moment I stopped fighting the medication was the moment that I really started improving.
The moment you started taking it? Or
no, the moment I stopped fighting it. Because I would take it, I would take it, and then I would stop taking it, and within 2 days to 2 weeks, I'd be back in the hospital with a psychotic episode. So the moment I stopped fighting the medication, and to be honest, I never really fought the medication. Even at Dartmouth, what happened was I was walking around telling everybody what I thought was my great joke, "Hi, I'm God," because how could God be 5'8"? And I found it hysterical. And the campus cops came in and said, "Are you Dale?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Would you come with us?" And I said, "Sure." So I figured they were taking me to meet the president of the university, but instead they took me to the infirmary where I was interrogated for the next 4 hours by three sets of Ivy League psychiatrists. They put me in a room and shot me full of drugs, and 2 days later I was in a mental hospital in New York City with a roommate named Gabriel, who was very deferential towards my mother Mary, whose second husband's name was Joseph, and who ultimately married the judge.
All right, you wow. Okay. So now, and what year was this?
This was 1975.
1975.
So psychiatry was basically in the dark ages still.
Yeah.
Well, one crucial fact that people overlook is the cost of serious mental illness. Like schizophrenics are basically 2% of the population, and the cost of schizophrenia and hospital costs, jail costs, lost wages, and everything, they estimate to be between $1 and $2 billion a year.
Wow.
So, the next most expensive mental illness is depression, which has like 10 times as many people, and that's like a tenth of the cost. So, just practically, it makes a lot of sense. I'm actually trying to get in touch with Bobby Kennedy Jr. to see if I can talk to him about this, because just on a practical financial sense, if we could take more care of schizophrenics, then then the cost would be reduced. And the other thing is that so many people that are homeless or in jail or in hospitals have schizophrenia, and they're just left to fend for themselves. I'm part of one group, and it's called Colorado Mad Moms, and 2 or 3 of their people just have Colorado apparently doesn't have a very good mental health system.
Right.
And so these people go to the hospital, they're given minimal medication, and then after 6 weeks, they're just released on the street with no alternative, and so they end up in jail or back in. It's just like a perpetrating vicious cycle, and it's a real shame.
It is a shame. And the thing is, when it comes to the cost, it shouldn't matter how much. Well, it does matter how much it's going to cost the patient, but as far as the hospital, that shouldn't matter, because you can't put a price on life.
Right. I'm actually thinking about going to the top and just giving the White House a call.
With your recovery, what's been the biggest obstacle?
Initially it was anosognosia, just like when I was first in the hospital, I kept saying to my doctor, why am I in here? And he'd say, well, if you broke your leg, Dale, you come to the hospital, right? I said, yes. And he'd say, well, you broke your brain. And not only did this traumatize me for 30 years, but it was also false because basically back when I was first taken away and diagnosed in 1975, there was a popular professional view that there was nothing anybody could do about schizophrenia.
Right.
And one of the reasons I'm like so active and so intent on getting my story out there is just to prove that I'm at the my company's called Do Live Love, DW, which is my initials, Live Love, and the motto of my company is recovery is always an option. And I think that's something that's very important to bear in mind. Of course, the pivotal word in that is option, because a person has to be dedicated to recovery before he or she can recover.
Because you say you're having problems finding clients.
Correct.
Have you contacted your local health department?
Well, I'm part of NAMI.
That was going to be my next question.
I'm actually part of their In Our Own Voice speaking program. So I have been certified as a speaker for NAMI, and I also have reached out to a lot of mental health groups like the Colorado Mad Moms and stuff like that. But the catch-22 of that is that without the professional licensing and without the professional legitimacy, these big like mental health groups won't recommend me because they think they don't value what I do because I don't have the professional training.
So without all the certifications, what could be done to where you're helping other people? And I keep thinking when it comes to like addiction, you have peer recovery specialists,
right?
Which are the ones that, of course, are in recovery. Although I do believe they do have certifications for that now.
They do.
Have you contacted possibly like your local political official about creating something, advocating for it? There you go.
Well, actually, I also have joined it's called the Advocacy Center, and I'm doing a boot camp for that starting March 18th.
All right, Dale, do you have any more surprises for me?
Of course. I'm just full of surprises.
Wow. So, I mean, you're taking the right approaches.
Right. That's the thing that's happening now is I'm getting a little discouraged just because, first off, I know what I offer to people is invaluable. And right. I offer like a unique perspective that can help people in a way that the doctors and professionals can't. And so I know that there are at least 2 million schizophrenics in the nation. So that means their families and their caregivers, I have a niche of 10 million potential customers. So right. It's very frustrating to me that I can't find people. I think I don't know what the solution is, but at this point I'm sort of like thinking, this is just something I've come up with in the last 2 or 3 days. Is as I said in our pre-interview, I'm tired of being held captive to the victimhood of mental illness. And basically, I feel that people with mental illness are basically put in a victim category, and they can't break out of it because they always have the diagnosis following them. So right. Ultimately, it just seems like my desire to help people is sort of like waning just because it seems like such a hopeless, such a Sisyphean task, pushing that rock up the mountain of mental illness all the time and then just watching the boulder roll back down. But, and that's one thing that I'm really dealing with now because, as I said, on my 10th birthday, I decided I was going to be a writer. and I'm thinking about just going back to writing and saying, screw this mental health stuff. But, on the other hand, I feel that's the reason that I got sick in the first place, is because God wanted me to help people.
And I think once people hear your message, especially once you get your other books published, that's going to be a big turnaround. And as far as the podcast, how many podcasts have you been on so far?
Probably about 40 to 50.
40 to 50. Okay. So the word's getting out there. The word's getting out in hundreds of countries. Well, over 100 countries, which is good. I think have you contacted any nonprofits that, remember before we were speaking or before we started recording, I mentioned Season Psych, which is a local nonprofit here.
Right.
Which helps with that. Are there any nonprofits around you that you know of?
Well, first off, my help is universal because I do it through Zoom. So it doesn't, it's location free.
Okay.
So, but, no, I really haven't researched a nonprofit, mental health nonprofits. That's a good idea.
Yeah, because and I think that's why you're seeing more nonprofits pop up that help with this, because maybe it's the organizations that want all those letters after your name. With the nonprofits, you don't need that, I guess. I'm not sure, but I still keep thinking about peer recovery specialists. You've been through it. You're helping people. It's a no-brainer to me that other people should be contacting you for help. Well,
the other thing is I have a unique focus in that I help the family caregivers, because I call the families of those with schizophrenia, with mental illness, the forgotten victims of mental illness, because everybody focuses on I hate the word patient, but just for ease sake, everybody focuses on the patient, and the patient has a doctor and everything, but family members, especially with HIPAA, sometimes they're totally lost. They have no idea. And they're the ones who are dealing with it 24/7, 365. The doctor sees their loved one, for 30 minutes to give medication, and maybe they have a psychologist for an hour a week. But, the family caregivers are really the ones in the trenches dealing with the challenges and the problems that come up. And, I just want to reach out and help them, because I realize how much hell I put my own family through.
What advice do you have for someone who's struggling to support a loved one with a serious mental illness?
Well, there are a few things. One is respond, don't react, because people can say very triggering things, and and if you react, you're just going to escalate the anger or whatever's going on. I always recommend this book. It's called I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help, which is by this doctor named Xavier Amador, Amador. And that's the story of his journey with his brother, who was schizophrenic and who was in agonisognosia the whole time. And it just has a lot. It has a lot of ways to improve communication and how to talk with someone with an illness and everything. And personally, I say, one thing you have to realize is this is not a 2-week cold. It's not going to go away. Right. And so, and therefore I encourage 4 things: love, faith, hope, and patience. And those are the 4 things that I really recommend that people have. And another thing is that, a lot of times when someone most of the time when people get serious mental illness, their loved ones see their new self, and they're terrified or horrified at the new person their loved one has become, and they just spend all their time mourning the person who's been lost rather than getting to know the new person that's there. And
Right.
even though it can be very difficult because they have an illness, I think it's very important to bear in mind that this is the person you loved, but rather than mourning the person that they no longer are, get to know the person that they are so you can communicate with them.
And I want people to contact you because I know you have a lot to offer. So can you share a success story of someone that you've worked with that really stands out to you?
Well, actually, so this is someone who was in my boarding school with me. It is my boarding school in co-ed my 10th grade year, and this lady actually was at my boarding school at the same time as I was, but I didn't know her. But so I just like put a random post in my class newsletter on Facebook and said, this is what I'm doing. I'm helping the family caregiver. And so basically she has a son who's been suffering from schizophrenia for 10 years. And so she went through my beta program, which is, I've never like actually fully implemented the full level up program, but I did a beta program, and she's just like so, she's just like so effusive in her praise of me. And she says, he's given me answers that no one else could. And, just like, I'm just like so grateful I found him. And so, and that's very fulfilling. And, I was building a speaking career when COVID hit in 2020. But, when I used to speak to people, inevitably people would come up to me after I spoke and just say, thank you, you gave us hope.
Good. And you're going to still be giving people hope.
Yeah, that's my plan.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And the books are going to sell because you're going to get them published. So how do people get in touch with you?
Actually, I have a website. It's www.dewlivelove.net. And then what I'm suggesting to people is I have a Calendly link where you can make a 45-minute appointment to just talk and see if you're interested, in joining the program and everything. And that's www.calendly.com/DaleCoach55. And I'm also on Instagram at dale.walsh.14. And then I'm also on Facebook at Dale Walsh, Dewey Dale. Dewey Do.
So before I get to my last question, which actually comes from one of my listeners, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, definitely. So basically my focus and my recovery has been a journey of self-awareness, of ever increasing self-awareness. And so I've discovered so much about myself, but also I feel that I've been extremely fortunate in the help I've gotten. I always had the support of my family, both financially and, emotionally and everything. Even though, what happened at Dartmouth was they took me away, and I went to my parents' apartment, and I spent the night with my parents. The next day they said, we have an appointment tomorrow. So I said, okay. So we went to this very ornate office in a fancy building on the campus of a New York hospital. And I met my doctor, who is named Cohane. I called him Cocaine Cohane. And so he said, would you sign this? And I said, sure. Well, actually, I looked at my mother and she said, sign it. So I signed it. And my parents got up and went left, and I went left to follow them. And Dr. Cohane says, no, Dale, you're coming with me. So that began a 13-week closed locked unit stay in Payne Whitney Clinic. And then I came to the program for 5.5 years. I got out of the program. I went back to college. I graduated with honors, magna cum laude in English from Fairleigh Dickinson University. And nice. I started a private tutoring business, which is I help Fairleigh Dickinson students write papers.
Wow.
I did that, and then I just had I sort of had a time where I wasn't doing anything and everything, but I was drinking beer and smoking pot every day, and this is something I want to talk about is the self-medication and everything.
Right.
And long story short, I gave up everything cold turkey in October 2007. And so I've been straight, sane, and sober for 17, almost 18 years. And, people say, how'd you do that? I said, well, I always knew substance abuse wasn't my problem. My problem was always the schizophrenia. Mm-hmm. And, but about self-medication and everything, I think that if when I was at Dartmouth, I was doing drugs every day. I was smoking high-powered weed every day and also doing hallucinogenics like LSD and mescaline and mushrooms and everything. And, people say, well, what caused you to go psychotic? And I think that, a lot of people have told me if I just stuck to pot, I probably never would have had the problems that I did. But the hallucinogenics basically were the tipping point. And so I just say to people, be very wary, both to caregivers and to those who are going through the illness, be very wary of self-medication because a lot of it, as I said, I've been hospitalized 15 times, and a lot of those hospitalizations was because I escalated my use of marijuana. I never stopped doing marijuana from 1970, from the moment I was taken away to 2007. And even though my last serious episode was 1993, I was still smoking pot every day, but I just could handle it because I was so used to it because I've been doing it. But I just say, be aware of the dangers of mixing, illicit, even though marijuana is now not illicit anymore in a lot of states, but be very wary of mixing street drugs with mental illness because it's a powder keg that's going to explode eventually.
Absolutely. And even with some of your over-the-counter drugs, mixing it with alcohol, you got to be very careful.
Right.
It's
that's the other thing. If you're taking medication, then the whole gestalt, the whole compound is just like, there's no telling where it's going to end.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this question comes from Hillary. This is actually a good question, especially for you. What were some ways you gathered the strength to keep going?
The depth of my delusion was one thing. Just this idea that I was God, so I can't stop.
Right.
And I meant, but more importantly, it was just sort of like my inner rebel, like rebelling against everybody who was saying I couldn't get better. It was like, damn it, I know who I am, and I'm going to get better. And no matter what you tell me, basically screw off because I know who I am. And so the determination came from, a lot of people, when I tell my story, they say, your story's so inspiring and everything. And I just say, to me, it's not inspiring. It's just I did what I had to do to get better.
Right. And now you're helping others do it.
Hopefully.
That you are. You already are, and you're going to be getting more, especially when the books get published. And, Dale, I think everything is just starting for you.
Well, that's what I keep telling myself, that I've been working this for like 7 years. So it's sort of like,
Takes time.
well, I hope so. And I'm just, because as I said, I have a potential niche of 10 million people. And, you know, out of that, I figure I should be able to get like 50 people to help at least. And, if it takes off, then so much the better. But, I'm hopeful with Bobby Kennedy as a HHS secretary to be able to like bring schizophrenia and serious mental illness to the forefront of the American dialogue. And, that's another thing I'm working towards. And I basically consider myself a role model or a poster child, a poster man of of the possibilities of recovery. And, I don't think I'm really extraordinary. I just think that I was given a lot of good circumstances that allowed me to develop my potential. But ultimately, recovery is always an option. And if you want to get better, you can.
Absolutely. Everybody listening, if you know of anybody that needs help, make sure that you contact Dale. Also, get his poetry books. Go on Amazon. Again, look for Mr. D.E. Walsh. Fossil Fuel for the Brain is probably the easiest way to find him. Look for that book and then just click on author. After you purchase the book and read it, leave a full review, and then purchase more books to give the friends of yours. And once his manuscripts are published, we're going to let you know, because he's going to come back on again and tell everybody about it. Dale, I want to thank you so much. It's been a true honor. And if you want to send them to me, feel free to. I will go ahead and look at them. I'll give you my honest opinion.
If you could just send me your email through my email, that would be great.
You got it. Thanks a lot, Dale.
Thank you very much, Rich. It's been a great pleasure and enjoyed it very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going.
Hey, Harford County, I'm Emily Adolph of The Soul Lift. You may remember me as a guest on Rich's podcast. Well, I'm back with something special.
And I'm Ona Crow. We're introducing Nourish and Connect, a gathering space designed to bring people together that feels authentic, supportive, and uplifting.
This is about real relationships, shared wisdom, and growth.
Our gatherings nourish with mindful experiences and reflective activities to leave you inspired.
And they're designed to connect with intentional conversations and welcoming community where you truly belong.
They're the second Wednesday of every month. Join us on April 9th at Doss Beer Hall in Bel Air from 5:30 to 7 p.m. to celebrate spring.
And mark your calendars for May 14th and June 11th. We have amazing experiences planned for summer.
Come as you are, and let's grow together.